Put Kaizen's name on the apartment. The sports car should also be registered under Kaizen's name. As for the remaining demolition compensation, Kaizen takes $12 million. As for you. My mother paused, glanced up at me standing in the center of the living room. What good is a large sum of money to a girl? In the end, you'll just marry into someone else's family. A printed sheet covered in numbers lay spread across the coffee table in the living room. Due to the redevelopment and demolition of the old urban district, my family received a total compensation of $20 million, yet not a single cent belonged to me, Lin Jiwan. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was an email from the finance department of my cross-border cultural company, Mr. Lin. This quarter's net profit is $1.7 million, and shareholder dividends have been fully credited. I snapped the phone shut with the screen facing down. Fine. Fine. My mother froze, completely unprepared for my calm acquiescence. My sister-in-law Sophia stood up from the leather sofa, her eyes betraying barely concealed excitement. A Latina American, she had married my brother Kaizen and since then focused all her attention on the family's demolition compensation. Auntie, as long as you're willing to go, that's great. Once Kaizen makes it big, he'll never let you down. I ignored her and turned my gaze toward the family photo on the wall, taken 3 years ago in Los Angeles. I was tucked at the edge of the frame, forcing a smile. Our family had immigrated to the U.S. decades earlier, settling in San Francisco, California, living off our ancestral home in the old neighborhood. When news of the demolition came, everyone's hopes were pinned on the massive compensation. You're a girl, you'll become someone else's when you get married. This same argument I'd heard for 28 years. From childhood onward, my brother Kaizen received private tutors paid for by the family. As for my tutoring fees, my parents claimed we borrowed money to cover them. Only later did I learn that every penny came from my part-time job at a Chinese grocery store on weekends during high school. Dad, I understand. I bent down and picked up the suitcase beside me. I'm going back to downtown San Francisco. There's still work at the company. Going back? Mother rushed forward, blocking my path. On Christmas Eve, you haven't even eaten dinner and you want to leave. I've no appetite. How stubborn you are. Mom, I interrupted her, voice flat. The $2 million has already been distributed. Why should I stay here? Waiting for you to hand me $200 a month as a living allowance every holiday? Silence fell over the living room like a tomb. Sophia couldn't help but snicker. Dressed in a luxury down jacket and wearing a shiny gold chain around her neck, she looked worlds apart from the frugal, plain woman who had first entered our home. Auntie, you can't talk like that. Since you were little, didn't we provide everything, food, clothes, shelter? I looked at her and spoke slowly. I spent 4 years studying at university in the US, and my parents gave me a total of $4,800. All other tuition, rent, and daily expenses were covered entirely by part-time jobs and scholarships. I calmly recited each transfer date and amount. The living room fell utterly silent. Finally, my brother Kaizen put down his phone, frowning. Sis, why bring up old scores? Just good memory, I said, opening the front door. During those 4 years, your monthly allowance was fixed at $2,000, while your private university tuition was fully reimbursed. Same parents, yet completely different treatment. The front door slammed shut as I dragged my suitcase into a rideshare car heading to San Francisco's high-speed rail station. The driver, a middle-aged Chinese man, kindly advised me to spend more time with my family, but I didn't respond. Outside the window, scenes of memory flashed by. To the east was the public high school where I once studied, to the west, the bubble tea shop where I worked during summer breaks. And to the north, the expensive private high school where Kaizen attended. Back at my apartment in San Francisco, 180 square meters with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city's night skyline, this was my third property, earned through entrepreneurship. On Christmas Eve, as lights sparkled across the city, I cooked myself a bowl of pasta and watched fireworks burst across the sky outside. Messages kept popping up in our family WhatsApp group. Relatives praised Sophia's cooking skills, while quietly gossiping about how I, at my age, still hadn't married and wasn't earning much despite all my hard work abroad, mistaking my monthly income for just $4,000 or $5,000. I left the group immediately. A few days later, my mother messaged me that my father had been hospitalized due to sudden high blood pressure. I knew this was likely another act, but I couldn't ignore my younger brother's desperate calls. So I drove to a private hospital in the Bay Area. The atmosphere in the hospital room was relaxed. The father, his face rosy, lay in bed watching TV. The mother sat nearby peeling an apple. And Sophia lowered her head, scrolling through overseas social media, none of them showing any sign of a critical illness. On the third day of hospitalization, I saw through the farce completely. My father's blood pressure had long since returned to normal, yet he refused to be discharged and insisted on buying expensive ginseng and bird's nest for tonic purposes. At dinner, Kai-sen pulled me aside into the hospital cafeteria, hesitantly asking me to cover $30,000 in hospitalization, nursing, and nutritional expenses. How long has it been since you received your $20 million compensation from the demolition? And already you can't come up with $30,000? I replied coolly. Kai-sen turned red with anger, grabbing my arm tightly. Don't get too arrogant, what right do you have to act superior with your pitiful salary? I coldly told him to let go, then turned and left the hospital without a word, driving straight to the high-speed rail station. On the phone, my mother sobbed bitterly, accusing me of becoming heartless. I simply told her that the Lin Jiwan who always gave in was gone. Not long after, my parents arrived at my office with Kai-sen and Sophia, entering the reception room. When they saw the elegantly decorated workspace, the photos on the wall showing me collaborating with Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and indie Hollywood artists, and me standing there in a professional suit, both were utterly stunned. This is my company. And I am the founder. I laid out the meticulously organized notarized accounts, every financial support my family had provided me from childhood to adulthood, totaling $23,400. In contrast, the continuous flow of funds into Kaizen's hands reached over $1.68 million. I also presented evidence. Shortly after the demolition compensation was deposited, Kai-sen secretly transferred $5 million into Sophia's personal account. Meanwhile, he himself indulged in golf and bar clubs, squandering more than $400,000 within just 3 months. With the truth exposed, the family erupted into chaos. Kai-sen and Sophia argued furiously before storming out, slamming the door behind them. Only my tearful parents remained in the sitting room, my mother pleading desperately for me to save my younger brother. I placed a bank card on the table, containing $1 million, enough to secure my parents' peaceful retirement. Opportunities belong to those willing to change. Kai-sen is an adult. His life must be his own responsibility. Stepping out of the meeting room, warm California sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto the hallway. My phone buzzed with a reminder from my assistant. The transcontinental meeting at 3 p.m. was about to begin. Outside, the bustling skyline of San Francisco stretched before me. My career, my properties, my life, all were here. After 28 years, I was finally free from the chains of gender bias, living fully and completely for myself. Chapter 2. After leaving the company's guest room, I didn't initiate contact with anyone at home. The bank card was left on the coffee table, containing $1 million, my final gesture out of familial obligation. I don't expect my parents to suddenly come to their senses. I only hope this money will free them from having to resort to lies and fabricated tragedies as leverage, forcing me to bail out my brother's life. For the following week, I immersed myself in intense work. My cross-border cultural company was about to launch a collaboration with an independent IP project from Silicon Valley, requiring daily coordination with overseas creators, contract reviews, and participation in online international meetings. Outside the office window, San Francisco Bay shimmered with soft blue light, yet unread WhatsApp messages continued pouring in from my parents' accounts. I had silenced all notifications. I thought this brief peace would last, but on Friday evening, just after ending a 3-hour video conference, the front desk called, voice tinged with hesitation. "Mr. Lin, your parents are downstairs in the lobby again. They didn't make an appointment this time, they insist on seeing you. I rubbed my throbbing temples, tapping lightly against the desk. Send them to the meeting room. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Pushing open the door to the lounge, I found the atmosphere heavy. My mother's eyes were puffy, bloodshot, dark circles deep beneath them, no longer frantic like last time, but instead filled with desperate determination. My father held his cigar tightly, unlit, his face worn with exhaustion. The bank card I'd left behind remained untouched on the table. Jiwan, we can't accept this money, my mother said first, her voice hoarse. I pulled out a chair and sat down calmly, looking at them steadily. Why not? This money is for your retirement, not for Kaisen to squander. What good is money to us two old people without Kaisen? Mother leaned forward slightly, her gaze fixed on me. That demolition compensation, Kaisen transferred 5 million to Sophia, and now they're constantly fighting and threatening divorce. He spends recklessly, within just half a month, he's already burned through most of the remaining 10 million. He has no real career. If things keep going like this, he'll eventually go bankrupt. My father let out a heavy sigh. Jiwan, your brother knows he made a mistake. He spent the entire night reflecting yesterday and swore he'd quit bars, golf, and other indulgences. He's determined to find a proper job and live responsibly. He'll figure out how to get that 5 million back from Sophia. Just help him once, save his failing little business. I raised an eyebrow. Save it? How exactly? Give him $3 million in investment capital to revitalize his trading company, my mother blurted quickly, as if she'd rehearsed this countless times in her mind. Once Kaisen gets his business on track, he'll repay you well. In the future, he'll fully support our care, so you won't have to bear any burden. Hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. $3 million. Mom and Dad, you speak of this sum as if it were just spare change. You're the company founder. It wouldn't be hard for you to come up with the money, my mother said, sounding entirely justified. We raised you, even if we didn't provide you with material abundance, we still gave you life. In the US, children have an obligation to support their parents. Indirectly helping your younger brother is your responsibility, too. I already fulfilled my obligation to support you with that $1 million, I said, my tone turning colder. The law doesn't dictate that an older sister must foot the bill for her brother's vanity and incompetence. Growing up, the family's resources were constantly funneled toward Kaisen. I had to scrape and claw my way here on scholarships and part-time jobs. Every penny I have was earned through countless sleepless nights and grueling work with clients, it didn't just fall into my lap. My father slammed his hand onto the coffee table, his face flushing red. So, in your eyes, family ties can all be measured in money. Even if Kaisen made mistakes, blood is thicker than water. Blood ties are a fact, but they shouldn't become a shackle that allows for endless demands on me, I said, looking him straight in the eye. When we received $20 million from the demolition settlement, you didn't think about blood being thicker than water then, you didn't leave a single cent for me. Now that Kaisen has squandered the family fortune, you suddenly remember you have a daughter. Just then, the door to the reception room was flung open. Kaisen burst in, looking disheveled. His suit jacket was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot, and dark stubble covered his chin. Sophia followed close behind. Both of them bore bruises from a recent altercation, clearly, they had been arguing all the way from home to the office. Lin Jiwan. Kaizen's chest heaved violently. Mom and Dad humbled themselves to beg you, are you really so heartless? I've had a falling out with Sophia, she's clinging to that 5 million and refuses to return it. She's even hired a Chinese lawyer to handle our divorce and asset division. Sophia stood with her arms crossed, her gaze sharp. Kaisen voluntarily transferred that 5 million to me back then, it's my personal property, and legally, I'm under no obligation to return it. Now that there's a problem, the blame falls entirely on me. The whole family tacitly agreed that the demolition compensation should go to Kaisen, but now that the money is running out, you want to pin your hopes on your sister. Upon seeing the two of them, my mother instantly broke down, covering her face and sobbing uncontrollably. The cramped meeting room turned into the stage for a messy, chaotic family drama. Employees passing by glanced curiously into the room, and quite a few recognized my family. A wave of humiliation washed over me, engulfing me completely. I stood up, picked up the untouched bank card from the table, and slid it toward my parents. 1 million, that's still for your retirement. But I won't invest a single cent in Kaisen. With reddened eyes, Kaisen took a step forward, looming right over me. Are you really going to stand by and watch our family completely fall apart? You squandered everything with your own hands. My voice was clear and firm. Adults have to bear the consequences of their own choices. I pressed the call button under the table to alert security. Please leave my company. If you continue to cause a scene here, I'll have no choice but to contact the California police. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at a white sailboat gliding across the distant San Francisco Bay. A notification popped up on my phone, a message from the family law attorney I had consulted earlier, *MS. Lynn, if your family continues to harass you at work or in your personal life, we can assist you in applying for a restraining order. I looked out at the vast expanse of the sea and let out a long, deep breath. Blood ties cannot be severed. But I no longer need to sacrifice my own life to fill a bottomless pit dug by others. The path that is truly mine is one I must walk forward on my own. Chapter 3. 3 days after security escorted my family out of the office building, my lawyer called me with an urgent matter. I was attending a creative industry salon in San Jose, surrounded by partners from Silicon Valley, when my phone began to vibrate incessantly in my pocket. I stepped out onto the terrace to answer it. The sea breeze carried the cool mist of the San Francisco Bay as my lawyer's steady voice came through the line. Ms. Lynn, your parents have filed a petition with the California Family Court seeking support payments from an adult child. They claim that because you are successful, you have an obligation to pay substantial monthly maintenance. They are also asking the court to mandate that you provide financial support for your younger brother, Kaisen, and assume a portion of his debts. My fingers tightened instinctively. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp. Leaning against the cold railing of the terrace, a flood of memories raced through my mind. I had anticipated that they wouldn't give up easily, but I never expected them to go to court to weaponize our blood ties and use the foreign legal system to pressure me. They've hired a lawyer from the Chinese community who specializes in family disputes. The documents they submitted paint a distorted picture of the past, claiming they poured all their resources into my education while I was growing up, only for me to turn ungrateful and shirk my family responsibilities now that I've found success, my lawyer continued. Kaisen has also been posting ambiguous messages on social media implying I'm unfilial. Quite a few people in the Chinese community have already seen them. After hanging up, I let the sea breeze wash over my face. Lively chatter and laughter drifted from the salon inside, yet my heart felt heavy. I returned to the venue, offered a brief apology, cancelled all my afternoon meetings, and drove back to my office in downtown San Francisco. As soon as I walked into the company, my assistant hurried over, looking anxious. Ms. Lin, posts have already appeared on Chinese forums and the overseas version of Xiao Hongshu. Anonymous accounts are accusing you of skyrocketing to success after emigrating, abandoning the family that raised you, and refusing to help your own brother in a life-or-death situation. Many netizens are already discussing it, and some business partners have even reached out privately to sound us out. I opened the webpage. The post was written in a tear-jerking, emotional tone, painting my parents as long-suffering victims while portraying me as a cold-blooded, selfish daughter corrupted by money. It deliberately omitted the full facts, the $20 million demolition payout, the family's gender bias, and Kaizen's reckless squandering of money, presenting only fragmented details to mislead the public. The comments section was in an uproar. While some people criticized the unfairness of my family, many overseas Chinese netizens, influenced by traditional values, left comments condemning me for lacking familial affection. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I wasn't afraid of a lawsuit, but I dreaded this kind of public backlash. My cross-border cultural and creative company relied heavily on the overseas Chinese market. If negative public opinion spiraled out of control, It could damage the brand's reputation and destroy the career I had spent years building. That evening, my mother called, and I didn't reject the call. Through the receiver came her familiar tearful tone, not the hysterical arguing of the past, but a calmness that betrayed the fact that she held the upper hand. Jiwan, if you're willing to put up $3 million to help Kaisen settle his debts and drop your plan to claw back the money transferred to Sophia, we'll withdraw the lawsuit immediately and delete all the online posts. We don't want to drag this into court and make you lose face in the Chinese community. I spoke slowly. So, the lawsuit and the online posts were just tactics to force me to compromise? You're the one who forced us to this point. My mother's voice suddenly hardened. If you had even a shred of regard for family ties, would it ever have come to this? We don't even care about that $1 million retirement fund anymore. We just want Kaisen to be able to live a decent life. Mom, Dad, court cases are decided based on evidence, I replied calmly. I have kept records of everything. Notarized accounts, tax documents from my part-time jobs during college, proof of scholarships, records of how the demolition compensation was distributed, and a complete log of Kaizen's reckless spending. A judge will see that the vast majority of the family's resources were funneled to Kaisen while we were growing up. Under California law, support payments are calculated based on the parents' own assets. Since they are holding on to the remaining demolition money, they aren't financially destitute. Their chances of winning this lawsuit are slim. There was a silence of a few seconds on the other end, followed by my father's angry roar, "You're actually planning to use this stuff against your own parents?" I don't want to face my family in court, but I won't be coerced. With that, I hung up. Over the following week, the team scrambled to manage the PR crisis while my lawyer compiled a comprehensive set of evidence to prepare for the lawsuit. Simultaneously, I arranged for the PR team to release, via anonymous forum posts, objective, de-identified evidence regarding the total demolition compensation, the distribution of funds, and records of Kaizen's lavish spending. As the truth gradually surfaced, public opinion began to shift. Many overseas Chinese women came forward to share their own stories of facing similar gender-based discrimination within their families. The anonymous posts were eventually taken down by the platform, and the rumors slowly died away. 3 days before the hearing, my parents proposed a pre-trial mediation session. They wanted to avoid a public confrontation in the courtroom. After some deliberation, I agreed. The mediation room had a soothing atmosphere. My lawyer and I sat on one side of a long wooden table, while my parents and their lawyer sat on the other. Kaisen was absent. He was reportedly still dealing with divorce proceedings involving Sophia. My mother's eyes were heavy with exhaustion. She had aged visibly in just over 10 days. My father's brows were tightly furrowed, and he consistently avoided making eye contact with me. Their lawyer outlined their demands according to procedure. They still wanted me to pay substantial maintenance fees and cover Kaizen's debts. When it was our turn to present evidence, we laid out the documents, the meager transfer records from my family over the years, my tax filings from the part-time jobs I held during high school and college, and the written agreement stipulating that the entire $20 million demolition payout belonged to Kaisen. A heavy silence filled the room. My lawyer explained that my parents retained the remainder of the massive compensation payout and were fully capable of supporting themselves. The $1 million I had voluntarily offered to provide already exceeded the legal maximum for maintenance obligations. Legally, an older sister has no obligation to repay her younger brother's personal debts. The mediation lasted over 2 hours. Faced with the evidence, my parents' demands crumbled. My mother finally broke down and wept. "Jiwan, we know we failed you in the past. But Kaisen is our only son. If he falls apart, what hope is left for us?" Looking at the 2 elderly figures before me, their temples graying, I felt a complex mix of emotions. My resentment had long since faded, leaving behind only a profound sense of helplessness. Blood ties are real, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sacrifice the fruits of half a lifetime of labor. I will still honor my promise of $1 million. These funds are strictly for your retirement and medical care. I will have a third-party trust manage the money and disperse it to your accounts in monthly installments. It will not be handed directly to Kaisen. Beyond that, I will not contribute another penny to support my younger brother. I laid out my final terms, enunciating every word clearly. If you accept, sign the mediation agreement and drop the lawsuit. If not, then we wait for the court's final verdict. My parents sat motionless in their chairs, silent for a long time. Outside the window, the San Francisco sunset slanted into the mediation room, casting a wash of orange gold across the floor. They held the weapon they had used to sue me, yet they had long since squandered all their leverage through their ceaseless favoritism toward Kaisen.